question. How do you manage not 47 but 52 people? I'll get to that, but maybe let me first explain you what those 52 people are and what they do. For those of you who don't know, so at the European Commission, they all realize how important digitalization, data science, and artificial intelligence is. So importantly that in April 2018, the Commission decided to adopt a European strategy for artificial intelligence. And it means boosting investments in Europe, working together with member states, developing the necessary skills for AI, and that's something that is being done here a lot, for instance, tackling socioeconomical challenges, but also the ethical and legal issues, which we all know are there. It's a very sexy topic, ethics of AI, and it's great that it's also being addressed here because besides being very sexy, it's also very, very important. And it's in that context that the European Commission decided to set up a multidisciplinary, high-level expert group on AI. 52 experts, multidisciplinary, and at least in their own eyes, very high level. You can imagine that besides, being the very light topic of ethical guidelines for AI that they had to draft, it's in any case not easy to get people around the table speaking literally different languages, because they're from 22 different countries, and then speaking different languages just because their backgrounds were so different. So you had people from academia, and we all know how well academia people play together. And those people from academia also came from very different disciplines. We had, psychology professors, we had computer scientists, engineers, lawyers, who nobody likes to play with, philosophers, ethicists. Then we had industry representatives, smaller companies, bigger companies from many different sectors. And then we had civil society organizations, consumer representatives, NGOs, trade unions. So a very nice mix. And the motto that we put for ourselves, which we really had to, is United in Diversity, which is the motto of the European Union. And somehow, I think it's because of a small miracle, we managed, on the deadline, to produce a document that is called the Ethics Guidelines for Trustworthy AI. Now, the purpose of that document was not just to give you a nice theoretical paper on ethics of AI for Europe. The idea was really to make it practical and useful. Because we all know that there are ethical issues around AI, and we all know that, European companies, organizations, and I'm also talking about the public sector, so not just private organizations, they would like to be ethical. They would like to give ethical products and services enabled by AI. Also because it's a competitive advantage that we as Europe can give. Consumers need products and services that they can trust. And if we can deliver that to them with our unique European values, which are a little bit different than the values they have in the US or China, for instance, that can be a competitive advantage. So it's a win-win-win situation. That's why, with the ethics guidelines, the idea was to keep it as practical as possible. So the experts started with some high-level philosophical ethical principles. Those were the ethicists who mostly worked on that. And then they derived from those high-level principles these 7 key requirements that you see behind me. I'm not going to go into the details of these requirements, but I'll just touch upon them briefly. Because when we talk about AI ethics, these are probably the most important things to keep in mind. First of all, human agency and oversight. What does it mean? It means that when we build AI systems, we need to make sure that they respect human agency, that they respect fundamental rights, and that there is some level of human oversight in place. Does it mean that for each and every AI system you need a human in the loop looking at every decision? No. But it does mean that you need to make an assessment when you have your AI system of when it might be necessary that there is human interaction. Someone who has an overview of how the decision-making process goes, especially if those decisions will then be taken and will have an impact on individuals' lives, right? And there it's very important that distinctions are being made between AI systems that directly interfere with users, end users, consumers, AI systems that are deployed in B2B contexts, AI systems that are deployed in public sector contexts. So there are different things there that we need to tailor. Technical robustness and safety. It sounds maybe a little bit at odds with ethics guidelines. But if your AI has the best ethical intentions in the world, but cannot foresee that it cannot be hacked, for instance, that the data cannot be accessed by others, then your system is not very ethical either. Even if you have the best ethical intentions, it's not trustworthy. I wouldn't want to use it. So that's why this is an important part that is also included in these ethics guidelines for AI. Privacy and data governance. I'm sure that everyone here in this room is familiar with the GDPR. But GDPR is one thing. That's to protect our privacy, personal data. But besides that, there is also data governance. And with that, we mean ensuring high quality data. Garbage in, garbage out. Ensuring the integrity of the data. And also putting in place mechanisms that ensure that the right people have access to data. And the people who don't need to have access to the data should not. Transparency. Maybe one of the most important requirements that the expert group identified. Trying to put in place traceability mechanisms. Explainability, which for a lot of AI systems, based on deep learning, for instance, is a challenge. But explainability doesn't mean that you can exactly pinpoint how a certain decision was taken. It means that if you interact with an end user, and if the decision of the AI system has an impact on that end user, that you can explain the logic of the decision making. So that if that decision might be wrong, because we all know that an AI system will never be 100% accurate, that person can challenge a decision. Especially as we see that AI is increasingly being used in all domains of our lives, also the domains where they have a significant impact on our lives. Not always, but in those situations where that is true, we need to ensure that transparent processes are in place. Diversity, non-discrimination. The fact that there are not enough women that are right now developing AI systems indirectly also leads to the fact that AI systems have a sort of bias. Because in the data, the fact that there are women in the world, and not just women, but a lot of other groups, are not always reflected. Has a different gender. So we better ensure that the decisions that these AI systems bring are relevant for that other half of the population too. And again, it's not just women. But we need to ensure that the data is inclusive. We need to ensure that those constructing the algorithms are also diverse, because it's not just the data, it's also the way in which you build the actual algorithm. Societal environmental well-being. I think it was this week or last week that an article circulated about the impact on the environment that AI systems have, that training algorithms can have. It's very intensive. So this is something that we need to think about as well. Because we can try to ensure ethical AI as much as we want. It's fixed. It's fixed, great. But if we don't take care of our planet, who cares how ethical our AI is, right? And the last one, accountability. We need to ensure that proper accountability measures are in place, that someone takes responsibility for AI decisions, because otherwise I'm not going to trust the AI system either. And that also means possibility for redress, again, in case a decision is wrong and impacts me. There is no perfect AI system. Even though a lot of successes are being booked right now, where there is chance of an error, you need to make sure that that error can be repaired. So that's in a nutshell the 7 key requirements that the expert put forward. And to make it practical, they created an assessment list. for organizations. For each of these 7 requirements, they identified key questions that you as an organization can run over and see, for your particular AI application, am I taking this into account? Am I ensuring that the quality of my data is sufficiently high? Do I have mechanisms in place for that? Do I have mechanisms to verify potential biases in my AI system? And because we know that we don't know everything yet, and this is a fairly new thing, the idea is now to ask all stakeholders throughout the whole of Europe and beyond to test out this assessment list, to pilot it. So if you're an organization that develops or deploys AI, why don't you participate? We launched the piloting phase on the 26th of June. It will be an online survey, and all you need to do is take the assessment list of the guidelines, you apply it to your AI application, and you see whether it makes sense. Because there might be questions that are just not relevant for your AI application. There might be questions that are not clearly formulated. Now, all this feedback will help the European Commission and member states to ensure sound policy making around AI. So it's important that you participate and make your voice heard in that. So that's in a nutshell the work I'm doing. And maybe 5 points to close, and then hand it over to the next speaker. I think when we talk about AI ethics, we need to dare to ask the big questions. Some people say it's too early to talk about ethics of robots and AI, and no AI will take over the world anytime soon. While that is true, there are a lot of issues that are already present today and that need to be addressed. So it does make sense to ask also the bigger questions now. Not just, is this AI system biased, but what does it mean for us as a society, for us as human beings, to rely on those systems? Not just AI systems, but technology in general. Second point, make your voice be heard. I hear too often this phrase that, oh, but I don't have any impact and the Commission is just doing things and they don't know what they talk about. Well, for once, they know that they don't know what they talk about, and they ask your help. So participate in this piloting phase, and also consider joining the European AI Alliance, which is a multi-stakeholder platform where you can give ideas on AI policy making in Europe. The third point, it's crucial to build communities, and that's something that is trying to be done here, and we need to do it at local level, but also at European and global level. And AI can help us with that as well. My fourth point is that we need to take responsibility. Even these high-level experts, on some points, they kind of chickened out a little bit and said, oh, but I don't know if I have that right level of expertise to already tell you now. No. Of course, if you don't know, you don't know. But we cannot hold back, we cannot wait. We know that we need to invest in AI and invest in our future, and we know that we need to do it in the right way. And we need to learn along we go. We cannot just wait and hold back and be this region that everyone forgets about. And then maybe my final point, you probably all heard of this movement, AI for good. AI is a technology that can be used for very good things and very bad things. And it's our individual and collective responsibility to use AI for good. And I know this is an event about AI ethics, but just to close, being ethical and being good, it's not just about AI. It's great that we talk about ethics so much in the context of AI, but what about all these other technologies? I leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you.